We are awakening together. This is our weekly gathering we hold online. For more information, visit our website, awakening-together.org. We'd love to see you there.
Thank you, Marisol. There's a part of me that said, can we just listen to music for an hour and dance? But we start with music. So thank you for being here. And as is our joy and our habit, we begin by greeting each other in the chat while we sink into We Are Awakening. Our statement of purpose. We are an assembly of equals joined in common purpose, awakening to one true self. Within an appearance of many faiths, many cultures, and many symbols, we seek to discern one truth and to rest in its embrace. Core value number 3. We accept one true self, which is one presence or being, non-dual, without beginning or end, and absolutely changeless. We live this value by practicing letting go of the belief in the individual self as who we are. Now, announcements. Just a few words before I introduce the first song. And here's the question: Who do you think I am? What expectations do you have based on who you think is leading the gathering today? And it's funny, I'm not asking anybody to write anything in the chat, so you can be really, really honest. Just allow what comes up and see how everything that's coming up right now, well, maybe not everything, but if in the answer to the question, what are your expectations based on who you believe I am relative to what this gathering is going to be? In that word, in those words, who do you think I am? And what are your expectations for this gathering? Notice how what shows up in your mind is based on the past. It's based on story. It's based on your memory of other times where you and I may have interacted, or what you may have heard, how we've shared, or how I've shared, or how you've responded to something in the past when we've been together. In the past, in your interpretation of who you believe Reverend Cyndi is, and what you can expect by spending time with Reverend Cyndi, good, bad, or indifferent. It's all based on the past. Is that interesting? The title that arose for this gathering was Beyond the Known. Not what I don't know, but beyond my current understanding, beyond the knowing, beyond my known. Do you know that in order to allow an opening to beyond the known, we have to be willing to let go of everything we think we know? And when you start to do that, when you start to let go of the container that's created based on your understanding of why you're here right now and who you're interacting with, you discover a whole bunch of limiting beliefs, recognition. Perhaps what I'm discovering is a whole bunch of fear of letting go of all of these points of history that tell me who I am and why I'm here and what I'm doing and what I can expect beyond the known. 2 days before I handed everything over to Marisol, this particular song started playing in my head, which is unusual. It's not a band I typically listen to. And from the out looking in, it might even feel like a kind of pop song, like an outer song. But I want to invite you to watch the video and be with the video as well as the song. And I'm even going to tell you what to look for, because I had to be with this video and this song a couple of times before my conditioning moved through, because there was a part of me that said, I'm not going to play this song. I don't even know if I like this song. I like it now. Um, the video shows a whole bunch of snapshots of the so it doesn't even feel like it relates to the music of the song. At least it didn't for me. But there's a whole bunch of photographs. And in the beginning of the video, we see the performers as youngsters hanging out with a brother or a sister or parents when they're young, frozen. And at the end of the video, the photos change to the present moment. And then the beings, the current day beings in the photos come alive. We can only ever truly be with each other here. It becomes very interesting to notice how the past seems to color our ability to be present in the now. So, Marisol, if you play our opening song, please. If anyone's wondering why I say yes whenever I have an option to lead a gathering, it's because every opportunity to say yes, for me anyway, opens me up to deepening into this work and the realization. And I had a every time I listened to that song in my head until I started watching the video, and now every time I spend time with it, something cracks open. And this is my prayer for this gathering, or the prayer is that it becomes our prayer. And the prayer is just the recognition that God, for all of us, that God simply is. And to know the simplicity and the joy of that requires the willingness to drop who you think I am, which is the same thing as saying who you think you are, and allow yourself to just be what we are. Um, that's the prayer of my heart, that we sink into the beingness of the truth that God simply is. A couple of words now before the reading. And the exact timing of this is foggy, since I am actively letting go of the past, and I didn't write it down. I didn't know that I'd be here now when all of this was arising. So there was the yes to leading a gathering. And there were words, there was a question in a book I'm reading. And the question was, the question was, who do you care about most in the world? You might want to sit with, like, what comes up for you? The question was, who do you care about most in the world? The immediate answer for me was my daughter, Emma. There was no question. It was my daughter, Emma. But held within that was also the knowing that the answer to the question, who do I care about most, wasn't who do I love most. That's not the way the question was answered. Emma came up because I think about her most, because I worry about her the most, right? I worry about the way, there's people who hang out with me know a lot of Emma stories. So much of my thoughts about Emma are caged in the past, of when she was 2 and 4 and 10 and 12, and why she needs whatever. So immediately I heard this. The question was, who do you care about most? I got an answer, Emma. And then I immediately knew it was because there's a lot of fear around the Emma story here. And and I don't want fear. I don't want to hold my daughter in fear. I don't want to hold anyone in fear. So I shared that in a gathering, like probably the same day, and right around the time that the email came out that with the invitation to receive this slot. And I shared that. I said, I'm not holding that. There's an intent, there's such power in saying to the universe, I don't want to fear for anyone or anything, not myself or anybody else. And I'm releasing this and I'm going to find a way, right? And so I hold this intention. I go into a meeting, and a friend who's not in here, friend Richard, said to the meeting that he was at a Course in Miracles live conference in Vegas. So it was before I was studying. I don't know what year that was. And he listened to this woman speak who wrote a very small book that changed his life, changed her life. And the title of the book was The Only Little Prayer You Need. And he told us what the prayer was. Please heal me of these fear-based thoughts. It's like 5 words, that fear-based is one. Please heal me of these please heal. See, it's so easy for the ego to get it wrong. Please heal my fear-based thoughts, because there's no me here. Please heal my fear-based thoughts. And so the reading is going to come from this simple book, right? And there is an invitation to not assume that this is too simple and to not assume, and I'm a course student and yeah, and I understand all this, but when are we going to get to the good parts? Because we've been here in this space long enough to know that the truth is very, very simple. And ultimately, it comes to a choice of where we're going to place our attention. And when we're choosing something as simple as God simply is, and there's no fear in God, so sit with that. After that, what happens is it's about the practice, practicing the presence. One of my recent gatherings was all about Brother Lawrence, practicing the presence. People, we have a study group with Joel Goldsmith, and Joel Goldsmith is practicing the infinite way. It's literally not about learning anything new. It's about being willing to know where we're placing our intention and to allow these practices that light up for us to be in our constant awareness. And so I have the same reader twice, and I'll tell you it's because once someone becomes ordained, they're not permitted to read anymore. And so I invited her to read the last time because I thought it might be the last time she could read, and then all of a sudden we're doing it again. So Rona, thank you so much for agreeing to be my reader again. The excerpt is from The Only Little Prayer You Need.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very grateful to be here and to be your reader this morning. According to A Course in Miracles, our minds have 2 sides. One is the ego. Unlike our traditional definition of the ego, which connotes people who are boastful or full of themselves, the Course makes the ego seem like a 2-year-old on speed, demanding, prone to tantrums and outbursts. The ego runs on fear. The other part represents the higher self, which remembers that we are children of God, quiet and respectful. It communicates through whispers and gentle nudges as it expresses and extends divine love. We live in a world that feeds our egos with fear. We're bombarded by fear-based messages every day. Terrorism will get us, or earthquakes, or global warming, or the economy. And we're constantly judged or judging ourselves for what we're wearing, our hair, our car, our home, our productivity, our performance on the job, our kids' accomplishments, and on and on. Once you start to break it down, you see that fear is pervasive, like a cancer that has gotten into our bones. We can also feed our higher selves in this world, but we do that in a different way. One that's not nearly as sexy as big drama can be. We feed it through meditation, self-reflection, stillness, time in nature, and other typically quiet pursuits that allow us to listen to the voice within. By doing these things, we become more aware of the light within us, the love that is the essence of who we are. Think of it this way. Our essence, or love, is like a flame that never goes out, but that flame burns inside a lantern that's covered in dirt, covered in fear. The more fearful our thoughts, the more opaque the walls of the lantern become, until we can't see the flame inside at all. We may forget the flame is there, or feel like it has no impact on our lives because we don't know how to access it. At that point, fear rules our existence. That's why the Course says, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. In other words, while the world piles fear on top of our light, our job is to remember that light within. When we do, whatever seemed to conceal it ceases to exist. That's where the prayer comes in. Please heal my fear-based thoughts. Let's look more closely at fear and love. When I teach the Course, I find it helps to picture two trees. Let's name one the fear tree and the other the love tree. I do this because our typical definitions of fear and love are limited. When we think of fear, we usually think of things we're afraid of: cancer, economic crisis, losing our jobs, our kids being hurt, personal loss, death. When we think of love, we typically think of romantic love, or the love we have for our kids, or our pets, or our best friend. But when you stop to really think about it, all our emotions are rooted in either the fear tree or the love tree. The branches of the love tree yield kindness, compassion, caring, creativity, joy, playfulness, peace, acceptance, and the biggest one, forgiveness. All the feelings that are rooted in love. The branches of the fear tree yield hurt, anger, meanness, violence, and the biggest one, judgment. All the feelings that are rooted in fear. In fact, fear yields many things that we don't usually attribute to it. It may be easy, for instance, to see how worry is rooted in fear. But how is, say, boastfulness a form of fear? Well, let's trace it back to where it comes from. You feel insecure about your worth. You feel you've got to prove yourself. And so you brag about your accomplishments. In truth, you're afraid that people won't like you, that you don't matter, that you don't deserve to be here. When you're boastful, you're really acting from fear. A lot of the thoughts we think every day, and I mean the overwhelming majority of them, are rooted in fear. And yet we don't think about them that way because they're about the mundane, like rattles in the dashboard. Sure, we're aware of major threats, job loss, death, life-changing illness, financial collapse, natural disasters, terrorist attacks. But the insidiousness of fear is that it creeps into the cracks between those threats and settles in, often unnoticed. It becomes a constant cover of darkness that never allows us to fully experience the inner light. Let's look at a list of fear-based thoughts as a quick reference. Abandonment, anger, anxiety, attack, boastfulness, bullying, control, conformity, living according to others' expectations at the expense of our unique gifts, depression, false humility, feeling superior to others, feeling not good enough, unloved, as though you don't matter, gossip, greed, grief, guilt, insecurity, irritation, jealousy, judgment, loneliness, malevolence, martyrdom, meanness, need for power, nervousness, panic, pessimism, poverty, revenge, sacrifice, sadness, scarcity, shame, suspicion, distrust, unhappiness, violence. This is not a complete list, and I'm not saying these emotions are all bad. They're part of our human experience. Grief, for instance, can be an expression of love, and it's an important part of healing. Anger can produce great clarity. The goal is not to eradicate fear thoughts or emotions, but to shift from thought practices that are primarily fear-based to ones that are primarily love-based. Let's look at a list of love-based thoughts. Acceptance, caring, comfort, compassion, confidence, contentedness, courtesy, creativity, delight, encouragement, expansion, forgiveness, freedom, generosity, gifts, grace, gratitude, healing, honesty, joy, kindness, patience, peace, playfulness, presence, respect, sharing, solace, warm-heartedness, willingness. One more thing. I mentioned that judgment is the biggest nut on the fear tree. Why? Because it makes us think we're separate from others, especially separate from God. Think of everything that judgment can lead to: bullying, violence, resentment, lack of forgiveness, loneliness. In each case, judgment leads to isolation and an us versus them mentality. Here's the simplest of examples. I see an old classmate and think, boy, she looks old. She must have put on 30 pounds. And why doesn't she color her hair? It would make her look so much younger. First of all, ick. But these are the kind of thoughts that can pop into our minds, right? Really, though, how is this an example of fear? And besides the fact that these thoughts are rude, they are just unspoken thoughts. So what's the harm? Anytime we're judging someone else, it's our ego trying to make itself feel better by comparing and coming out on top. And that means we're afraid we're not good enough. So we have to trounce somebody else. Of course, we know that this doesn't work. Not only does it not make you feel better to judge someone, it actually makes you feel worse. It makes you feel separate and alone. So you become more disconnected from your essence as a child of God, diminishing yourself a little more. You heap more fear onto the light inside you. You smear a little more mud on the sides of the lantern, and the light seems dimmer yet. This is what we all know, right? This is the golden rule. Every religion has a form of it. Some people might honor it because they believe it will earn their way into heaven. But right here and now, it's good mental health, important psychotherapy. Think about it. Why do people go to therapists? Because they feel depressed, they feel guilty, they're grieving, they're angry. They don't know how to find peace in themselves and their relationships. Most aren't trying to earn their way into heaven. They're trying to experience contentment and peace of mind right now, every day. What we're talking about is the key to living with the peace of God while you're here. You can live in hell, fear, or heaven, love. The prayer reminds us that every minute of every day, we can make a better choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Rona. I agree. Beautifully read. And it is real clear pointing. So I am inspired to go back again and ask you to sink into this. Who do you think I am? And just acknowledge that whatever comes up is coming up perhaps from a sense of what I am here is something other than you. Just that. It doesn't matter what adjectives or what descriptions or Cyndi is a minister who, or, every time she speaks, it feels like nails on a chalkboard, or someday I wish I could know as much as I don't, whatever it is that's saying. The invitation is to just recognize that it has some flavor of, I'm listening to someone who's not me. And in that, just feel how in that one pointing, you're identifying with something who's not God. I know it's a crazy leap, right? And the basic teaching is God is all there is, or the Tao, and everything is in that sense of oneness. Everything rises and falls from that. So if there is this sense that I am listening to something other than me, held within that is the sense that I can be separate. And if I'm separate from another, and if you'll feel into it, that energy of separate from other requires the acceptance that there's something separate from God. Does that logically make any sense if God is all there is? So it's a great kind of tether to it. Like I've been tethering to that as the intellect or the small self goes through this work. So I had said, I set the intention that this idea of holding a space of worry or fear called care for who I call an other, my daughter, is unacceptable. So I'm going to use this prayer now. I've gotten this prayer. I was told that I have a date. It's so useful when you have a future date that's, and I think it was for the next 2.5 weeks, I am going to practice this one prayer as often as I can. And then I'll be able to have something to talk about. I'll talk about how I've dissolved my fear directed towards my daughter. And I have a number of people in my world that have chosen to practice this prayer as well. And we have all these stories, right? So, and of Course in Miracles students and Joel Goldsmith students and others who have studied that there's only one may not be surprised, maybe you will, that within hours I learned that by direct experience in a way that was extraordinarily painful, that there really is no fear of another. And actually I learned that every fear thought that had Emma involved, once I knew what was really going on in the world, had nothing to do with her reality. Had nothing to do with her reality. Right? Her story, the story of her life, outside of when she and I are in direct contact, is so different from whatever the story is in my mind that it's kind of mind-blowing. And yet the system here keeps insisting. So that's one thing that's interesting. By staying in constant contact with the desire to know only truth and to use this prayer as like a tether. It was interesting last Tuesday what Jacqueline said to me while I was sharing in the early insights meeting. She was like, how wonderful that Holy Spirit gave you a tool. And it was fun watching the mind try to say, no, 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 this is the tool, which is funny because I have a lot of different tools. But this is it's a tethering tool to the truth, right? So what I discovered when I stood still, and even now there's resistance here to acknowledging that what was happening and what still happens in various ways is that there is an out picturing. Course in Miracles teaching, right? I am projecting out what can only ever be here. And what I was shown pretty quickly, that by holding my focus on worrying about another, and it seemed justified, what I was not seeing was this yearning inside to be known, to be seen, to be mothered, to be taken care of, right? And that was so painfully acute in here that it felt really impossible to sit with it. And so the small self protective mechanism continually pushed it out. You know, I have to take care of these worldly things, and these are important. And when I know that Emma's okay, and I know my finances are okay, then I could sit with what's here. Only I committed to using this prayer continuously until the gathering, and it plays automatically in my head these days. That it kept coming back to this feeling inside that somehow what I am is unlovable. What I am, this feeling of yearning to be tenderly taken care of, the yearning to have somebody else know me, the yearning for someone to care about me the way the mother was supposedly caring about another, to see me in my wounds and in my sad places and in all of those things. So I started to sit with that. And I'm going to tell you, like, Emma was on a plane yesterday, and I was asleep well before I knew whether or not that plane took off or landed. So this fear stuff is not about another. It doesn't even make any sense to me anymore to claim it. It's this space. So now, fairly early on, I'm sitting with some sense of, please heal these fear-based thoughts that are contributing to this yearning, this desire to be known, to be seen, to be loved, to be cared for. And then what happened, or what's happening still, is sink a little bit further. And I'm looking at this energy of wanting to be seen, wanting to be cared for, wanting to be known by an other, by an other. And then I start sitting with, well, if there's only God, and God simply is, what is it that yearns to be seen by something not her? I tell you, the ears are ringing, there's a contraction, there's an understanding. There's an understanding of something fairly fundamental here in being, calling ourselves human, calling myself, I am human, attempting to know the divine. That's what that energy is. But Joel Goldsmith, I've listened to a lot of Joel Goldsmith, says, I'm not a Cyndi looking for God. This is the infinite invisible. This is the divine having the experience of Cyndi. That's the switch. Switch is, this is the infinite invisible having the experience of the divine. Sinking further than that, and again, for those who have studied the course. Now, for me anyway, it's bringing this into the moment-to-moment constant experience. So many of our teachings teach that something occurred or didn't occur. Big Bang, and the experience of separation took place. All of me not being you, which is held in this belief that somehow I'm this body, this weight, this age, these problems, originated in something that chose to have an experience of separation. And I say it that way because whatever it was, that original seed thought that created this, what I am is not you, is beyond the knowing of one who is having the experience of separation. So I noticed that every time I attempt to figure out what that seed thought was, I'm using the small mind that doesn't know, and it's making up stories, and I can feel that now. So I rest in it being beyond the known, beyond the known. So where I've gotten to in this continuing practice is noticing that every taste here, and there's a lot of them, the taste in any way, shape, or form of a not me, like here Cyndi is, and I'm talking to others who aren't me. That's not here. You guys are all over the world. You're not sitting in this chair. You know, when I say I am talking to people all over the world, there's a taste of what I am currently is this body sitting in a chair in Grand Island, which means I am not in Michigan. I am not in Mexico. I am not in California or Sweden or New Jersey or North Carolina. That's a separation thought. This morning in the dyad, I was sitting in the dyad, I'm holding space and I'm contemplating and I'm watching some aspect of this mind continually projecting out to this moment, to the gathering, right? That's a not now thought. And I am now acknowledging that these not me, not here, not now thoughts thoughts are taste, they're aspects of fear. All separation thoughts have a fear component. And yet, God simply is. And there is no fear in God. There's no fear in God. There's no fear in God. Another name for God is love. Love. The definition of fear is the absence of love. Only God is all there is. So where is God not? Where is God not? And so as these thoughts come up, I wonder if I'm wondering if this teaching is landing anywhere, right? Here's a thought that's coming up in this small cell. Is this landing? Is this making any sense? For whom is that thought occurring, right? It's interesting. Please heal the fear-based thoughts that feed this belief that I am something other than what I see. And then the mind goes, how crazy, you're just Cyndi. Well, except that there's an aspect beyond the known. There's something beyond the knowing that holds all of us in this one present moment. So it doesn't matter whether or not we use the prayer, please heal these fear-based thoughts, or we practice the presence, or we remember God simply is. It's where we're placing our faith. And how do we know where we're placing our faith? Where are we placing our attention? And over and over and over again, fear screams. Problem solving screams really loud. That's because it's been believed. There was an experience of separation. And as long as we're hanging out in choosing the experience of separation, there's going to have a fear component. But God simply is. And God is love. Fear is the absence of love. So where isn't God? And when I sit with that teaching and allow the fear stories, the separation stories to meet the teaching, the fear begins to dissolve. Now it turns into other things, and there's lots of stories. And I got to tell you, when you open this Pandora's box of saying, no, 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 I'm not holding fear, then all the hidden fear that sort of is in the body, it continually outpours, but only as a gift. So as it comes, we can continually surrender it to something as simple as God simply is. Or please heal these fear-based thoughts that hold in place this belief that I'm something other than what I am, however it works for you. And this next song also came out of nowhere. Like I stepped into watching the higher part of the energy, the God that is within all of us, sings to me a lot with these songs. It's amazing. They come supposedly out of nowhere, but they're always here for all of us. And this song reminds me that I have an opportunity, like we all have an opportunity in every single moment to choose what we're going to believe in. Right? We can have Dove in our ears, I do, because every time I use that word believe, I have Dove telling me there's a lie in every belief. But while I'm still holding this space of being a Cyndi who is not you, that whole thing is coupled in fear. And I can choose to place my belief in something that will dissolve that fear until God simply is the only experience that's here. So this second song was also a gift that came from this desire, this intention, this I'm done, I'm walking out of the sandbox kind of feeling fear has no power in love. Yeah. So Marisol, will you play our second song, please? Thank you. And Marisol, thank you for dropping in the link. We Awakening Together is a church, and we are supported by your financial donations as you are guided to donate. And there is a link in the chat. And we do have a few minutes if anyone would like to share anything at all about how this sharing has touched you. While we're still recording, the room is open for that. Rona.
Thank you so much, Cyndi. I'm really grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to have sunken into this little simple prayer myself, because oh boy, have I discovered how the mind has just deep fear all the time. I mean, even in the simplest of tasks, and that this prayer has really helped me see that. I mean, I'm just walking around in a little ball of fear here and not knowing it, thinking I'm all confident, but that's the shadow that places over that fear, is that, self-confidence, that whatever, and it's just been an extraordinary experiment looking at these things. And it did take me a couple of days to get the actual sentence, because the ego wanted to change it up all the time. One of the important things was we kept putting the words, please help me heal these fear-based thoughts. And in recognition that the little me doesn't need any help. It's not the one, so that invitation to the universe to please heal these fear-based thoughts. It's not Rona doing it. Rona doesn't need help. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, over and over and over again, this system here attempts to limit the power. And I could, when I'm sharing with friends in a group, I could just watch as they start to laugh. I open my mouth, and instead of saying, please heal these fear-based thoughts, what comes out without even noticing is, please help me heal these fear-based thoughts. And that really is just that small self, that intellect, the part here that is so afraid of letting go of fear wants to take over. But again, what we're being invited to do, what I'm being invited to do, is step out of what I know. And the other thing is this verbiage, beyond the known. It feels so much better when I used to just sit here and say, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what this is, but I trust it, right? And there's a sense of a contraction and a smallness and I should know something. Beyond the known, beyond the known, feels like I'm stepping onto the Star Trek Enterprise. It's such a cool feeling. And it's also reminding me that in truth, there's nothing to know. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. And this space, I saw it so clearly. There's something here. There's an aspect of ourself that is so frightened of simply be here now, that it is continuously attempting to push out into thoughts of later, or interpreting what is being said from somebody else, or feeling like I'm not there, whatever. So it's just watching it and then bringing it back to presence and recognizing that the only place that ever exists is this one. And God simply is. And again, I'm gonna end here. God simply is. God simply is. Another name for God is love. Fear, by definition, is the absence of love. God simply is. Where does fear exist? And watch how the thinking mind wants to say, well, there's fear here. But if everything is God, who are you? And with that, I surrender the mic.
You've been watching our online gathering. It happens weekly on Sundays at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. To join us live in the sanctuary, visit our website, awakening-together.org. You'll want to click on Online Sanctuary in the main menu, and then in the drop-down menu, look for How to Enter the Sanctuary. Right there at the top of the page is a clickable link. We'd love to see you in the sanctuary and join with you in fellowship. Thank you again for watching. Also, please know that if you'd like to stay connected via the Awakening Together channel here on YouTube, you can subscribe and hit the bell for more notifications. We hope to see you in the sanctuary.